Welcome back to another message crawler update. Today I want to talk about various Teams import options I have in message crawler, and I just added another one to version 6.10. So let's go to my screen and I'm going to show you what different options are and what they're used for. Alright, so I have message crawler 6.10 here, and this is the one that gets a new option called Teams HTML version 3. But before we talk about version 3, let's quickly recap what these versions 1 and 2, as well as the PST one is. Well, Teams MSG or PST is kind of what it is if you have Teams data exported to a PST format or as loose MSG files, this is the tool to use. And this tool will also find EML files as well. I think I've had only one person who had EML files. It's usually PST, sometimes MSG. So if you have those, you would use this import tool. Now, the question that comes up a lot is, what is version 1 and 2? What's the difference? So the way Teams data is it's an HTML file, and inside the HTML file, there are hidden JSON files. However, those JSON files are often corrupt. Now, over the years, Microsoft's been doing better and better job at making sure those JSON files are encoded properly. The issue with them is not necessarily the corruption, but the way they're encoded. Special characters have to be handled a certain way, and when you embed JSON, within HTML, a lot of things have to happen, and Microsoft is just not getting it right. So, the Teams HTML1 is going to read the HTML, parse it out into components, and load it to message crawler. Version 2 is going to read the HTML, find the JSON, parse the JSON, and use metadata from that to load into message crawler. So version 1 uses HTML, version 2 uses JSON. Version 2 will give you a better metadata. It'll give you more consistent names. If there are delimiters, it's always going to be consistent delimiter. There are more metadata fields that you get with version 2. So it is overall better. And I always recommend starting with version 2. If you do get a message saying JSON parsing errors, then you need to go to version 1, which will do HTML parsing. And then you have to be more careful where you have to check what names delimiter was used and things like that. So that's the difference between 1 and 2. This one parses from HTML, and this one parses from a hidden JSON file. Now, what is version 3? Well, so Microsoft has changed their format. In the past, the format was something like this, where you have your CSV file and you have your native files. And message crawler would read the CSV file, and it would look in the native files folder according to the path here to, well, load to find the HTML files, parse them, and so on. The new format looks something like this. What we get is this items.zip file, and it has two subfolders, Exchange and SharePoint. I'm not going to open them because this is like my personal data and other people's names are in there. But what Exchange has is it contains HTML files and also images. So this is what we're looking to parse. SharePoint contains all the attachments. And this is what version 3 of the HTML import going to do. This will open a zip file directly. So going back to one more thing here, if you go to a Exchange folder, in some cases you will see duplicate file names. Now, it's kind of crazy, but zip specifications allow you to have duplicate file names in zip. And crazy enough, Microsoft is actually doing it. The reason why they're doing it, there is a checkbox at the export says use friendly names or something like that. And then instead of using like hashes or GUIDs, it's going to use the channel name, but it's going to create duplicates of that name. So that's not very user friendly. Basically what it means is you cannot extract that zip file. If you do extract it, the files will just override each other. So if you get that format and you have duplicate file names, do not extract. What's going to happen is message crawler is going to go through the zip structure and pull these files one at a time and save them with unique name. Now, the other thing it's going to do is, since we have a SharePoint folder, it's going to try to find attachments if they're mentioned in the HTML. And I had really good success with it. It finds pretty much everything. The only thing it doesn't find, in my experience, is when you have those play button, because there is no file name or no hyperlink back to the original file. So that's not going to work. But it does everything else. So you point to a zip file, it's not going to use a CSV file. It's going to scan all folders in Exchange to look for HTML, and it's going to use the SharePoint folder to look for attachments. Right, so that's how it works. And then once it's done going through all the HTMLs in Exchange and looking for SharePoint, it's going to identify any attachments that haven't been pulled out with the message. And then it's going to create a separate folder called unlinked attachments, and it's just going to drop them in there. So those are the attachments that Message Crawler could not match. And you can process those as loose edocs or something like that. Now, the way it is looking for attachments is kind of like what the PST import tool was using. It's going by file name plus 2 subfolders before that file. I've seen a couple of these exports, and the folder structure varies and it's a little inconsistent, but I feel like the last 2 folders plus file name should make things unique enough for Message Crawler to find it and be pretty confident in it. So that is how version 3 going to work. Again, reading directly from zip file, do not extract. It will find all the HTML files, pull it out, and load it in. And so that is our new third option to deal with fun Teams HTML exports. All right, that's my quick update on version 6.10. Thank you for checking it out. I will see you on another update.